Hello,
Um,
everyone. To everyone who's watching, hello, Dr. Fatma. Hope everything is well.
Hello, Kamal. How are you? Kamal?
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, awesome, Kamil, exactly.
Kamal.
My name is Kamil Rue. I'm your host for the day, the Regional Customer Relationship Executive at Great Place to Work, Middle East. And here with me is Dr. Fatma Al Madid from AETCGS as well. And I'll let you to introduce yourself for a bit and maybe what you do in the company as well. So just give us a brief description and then we can dive a bit deeper into our topic of the day, which is the role of leadership in shaping organizational culture.
Thank you, Kamal. And thank you for hosting me today to talk about this really important topic. I'm the director of AETCGS. AETCGS stands for Arab Educational Training Center for Gulf States. This is a semi government organization. We deal with training for ministries of education in the Gulf states. So, most of the time, we have workshops for leaders in the field, whether they are school principals, section leaders, or leaders in the ministries. The center has been working for 23 years. It started in 2001. The center is part of a bigger organization. Arab Bureau of Education is located in Riyadh. They are our sort of a mother organization. That office started in 1975 to establish the Gulf University for the Gulf states. Then the leaders of the Gulf states decided to have a training center located in Qatar, a research center in Kuwait, and the Arabic Language Center in Sharjah. So I've been here in the center for a year. I've celebrated my 1 year work anniversary a few days back. And it's been an amazing journey last year. I come from an educational background. I was a consultant in education above all, which I think everyone has heard of Educate a Child. I've also worked in the Ministry of Education in Qatar as a consultant for the private education sector. I am a graduate, I have a PhD from the University of Oxford in educational policies of bilingual education. For me, education is a passion. It drives me to talk about it and to work in educational projects. So, what do you want to ask me today, Kamal? Kamal.
No, that's amazing to hear. Actually, you're literally shaping the future leaders of countries as well in terms of what you do, in terms of training as well. It's super insightful to hear from you personally as well. So I would like to start off with maybe defining organizational culture and why do you think it's important for leaders to understand and actively shape it?
Okay, so organizational culture can be all the shared values, beliefs, and behaviors of how work is done within an organization. So it's important for leaders to understand, and they have to understand it themselves. Sometimes they have to shape it, they have to write it, communicate it, and then influence employees, because this will influence their behavior in the organization. It will influence their performance and the success of the organization as a whole. I would like to talk about the work of Simon Sinek. Simon is an inspirational speaker. He is the author of many well known books on leadership, motivation, and organizational culture. Simon emphasizes the importance of why. And in one of his books, Starts with Why, he talks about the concept of the golden circle. And the golden circle means that if you think of an organization having many layers, the outer layer will answer the question of what. What does the organization do? So if you're in a school or a factory or a training center like ourselves, it's very easy for everyone inside the organization and outside the organization to understand the what. What does this organization do? And then the second layer, which is a smaller layer, and 90 of the employees would know the answer to this question is how. How do we do this? How do we teach? How do we train? How do we run the factory or do the small specific jobs? But then at the center of this golden circle is the most important question is why? Why do we do it? And most of the time, and sadly so, many of the employees and sometimes the leaders themselves don't understand the why. They just want to do the what and how and go on with their work. But understanding the why is understanding the values that are the shaping the organization itself. It is the beliefs. It is why we do what we do. If you establish this, if you establish the values and embody them as a leader, then this will be leading by example. The organization will start with this purpose in mind, which will shape the culture of this organization. Simon also talks about another very nice concept, which is also the title of his book, is Leaders Eat Last. And Sinek discusses how leaders can create a culture of trust and cooperation by putting the needs of the organization and the needs of the employees first. And this will foster safety, belonging, and in the long run, if you establish this, it will improve morale, engagement, and will drive performance, which will lead to the end goal of every leader is the success of the organization.
100%. 100%. No, that makes a lot of sense, actually, Doctor. Especially the reason behind it is the why. I really love that statement, and I do feel that it gets lost in translation, especially when the company is growing a bit more and more as well. So that trickle effect from leader down might venture off when you're hiring a lot of mid managers as well. This is what we see actually at our stage here. So that was very insightful, to be honest with you.
Thank you. And you would think that if this is a challenge in the West or in the North, as you might say it, imagine how this is also a challenge in our part of the world, in the Middle East, where there is a sort of a centrality to organizations and management. So it is a true challenge, but I think starting the conversation like we are doing today and our organizations will really impact understanding the importance of, as I said, and as you emphasize, the why of organizations.
Okay, so for us as well, you defined it almost exactly the same as well. For us, organizational culture is the personality of the company as well. It's made, as you said, of the values, the attitudes, and behaviors, and this is what defines how people work together and interact within the organization. So I think we're in line, and we got this dialed in as well. And then let's dig a bit deeper with our second question, like. What are some common characteristics of strong organizational cultures, and how do they contribute to the overall success of a company? I know we talked about the golden circle as well, which touches a bit into the characteristics.
Yes, I mean, that's a really good question because sometimes leaders are often asked to have a strong organizational culture. But one would ask, what does a strong organizational culture look like? And for me, personally, from my work with the Arab Education Training Center for Gulf States, it started with having clear communication channels. I mean, it's a cliche to say, I have an open door policy. But to actually do it and actually accept it is another layer of leadership. Focusing on learning and development, where, focusing on learning and development for me as a leader. So I started to think about what can I do? What can I contribute? How can we take this organization to the next level, which is often the target for every leader. But when your eyes are on the target, don't forget the team behind you. You have to think about them. You have to think about communicating with them, developing the team, and this. The end result of this is the success of the company, where you foster a positive work environment, motivation. This will motivate the employees if they know they are valued, they are appreciated, their ideas are valued and appreciated, and when they make a mistake, they can say that we made a mistake. and how can we fix it? And if you start from that, and it doesn't mean that you're a weak leader. It means you are a leader who is concerned about the employees in the organization. I mean, I often call them my team, my friends, my colleagues, and because these are the people you need to go forward. And this is where you can focus. Seneca also, in one of his inspirational or keynote speeches, he talked about if you have a team in football or soccer or whatever, then you don't concentrate on the fans' needs, which is the customers. You concentrate on your team, and then they will give the best to their fans. So the same thing goes for the organizations. If you focus on your team, they will do their best to give the best, end product or end product experience to the customers. So for me, this is what a strong organizational culture looks like. It's based on communication, encouragement, and development.
Amazing. I feel like you touched point on the next question as well, in terms of leadership style as well. I feel like you mentioned that you have an open
Yes.
door policy, and not necessarily everyone claims to do it as well actually does it. I totally agree with this statement. I've had past managers, past leaders state the obvious and was not the same as well. Not throwing any shade on everyone, obviously. So going into our third question, how does leadership style influence organizational culture? And can you provide examples, for example, of different leadership styles and their
Yes.
impact on culture? I know from your experience, from your vast experience in education and ministries, I'm pretty sure you've encountered multiple different leadership styles as well.
Yes, of course. I mean, leadership style would definitely influence organizational culture, but it's not really, and it's easy to list leadership styles in a paper or when we attend seminars or training sessions, but then a leader would try to find himself, "Oh, where do I fit, and what do I need to do to fit into those things?" Leaders don't get enough training to get to that point. So consider this: if you are a really good worker and you're a really good employee, and then you get training to be better at your job, and then you get courses or diplomas or maybe higher degrees, and you get really, really good at your job, and then you get a management position, and now you're in charge of people who are doing your job. But the only thing you've been trained on is how to do your job really well, not to manage people who are doing the job really well. So this is
100%.
where it becomes important to have training. And I'm not saying this to promote what we do at the center, but training leaders on hands-on or competencies that leaders actually do need in the workplace is part of what we do. So consider one of the styles is a transformational leader. A
Mhm.
transformational leader thinks about change, but change in a way that would have impact on the market or on the field that they're into, where they motivate employees, they foster a culture of development, as I said, innovation and creativity. Everybody's ideas are heard, they are seen, and even if you don't like them, you can park them for now, where there's a clear respect of people in the organization. On the other hand, we often see especially in the government sector, autocratic leaders. These
Yeah.
people would stifle creativity. They will stop innovation and impose strict rules and regulations. And sometimes it's not. I mean, it's not literally their fault because this is how they've been trained and this is what the
Yep.
culture they've been into. But just to compare two types of leadership style, as I said, the impact organizational culture.
No, that's. I totally agree with you on these points. Definitely makes a lot of sense that it's not something that you're taught up when you're climbing up the leadership channel, how to manage people in general, and how to actively engage in with your employees. So, would you agree that emotional intelligence would be one of the main characteristics to have as a leadership as well? Try to read the room. What other characteristics would you define in it, or would you add to this as well?
Yes, that's also important. I think you touched also on an important. There are two skills that leaders need to have, and a lot of authors talked about this. It's empathy and perspective, and having empathy or vulnerability doesn't mean that you're going to be a weak leader, but it's having enough emotional and social skills to understand that people come from different environments. They maybe made a mistake because they had a bad day at home, or maybe they have a parent who was sick or a child who was sick, and maybe they just don't know how to do their job. It's just to understand that instead of asking for the end product as well. So the problem is that a lot of the leadership and management theories have been shaped in the 80s and 90s, and they were directed at having the best numbers and thinking about the shareholders and the end product. And most often than not, they never talk about the employees. In fact, a lot of the big names out there in the 80s and 90s were encouraging employee cuts. So if you have
Yeah.
the performance is low, they're encouraging employees cut, but that only encourages fear and and it's, as I said, stifle and stop motivation and creativity. So in this new era, we do need a lot of social and emotional intelligence when dealing with the new generation, and it's probably just not just the new generation, but we're only marking them and stereotyping the new generation. But I think they are better than us at understanding their own feeling. And if they're not comfortable, they will not stay. I understand maybe in this part of the world, people would take jobs they're not comfortable in because they need to. But at the end of the day, if they get a better offer, they will leave. If they are not
Yes.
comfortable, they're not understood, they're not respected. And we often see, a lot of articles talk about talent migration from company to company. And the only way to keep talent is to respect and have empathy with people, as human beings, not just as a certain generation. So, I mean, as you said, one of the core values of organizational values is leading by example and being a human being at the end of the day. And we don't have to wear a mask of a leader or think of how we saw our maybe school principal or and just copy that stereotype. It's understanding that just like you were an employee once, now your employees need your support and give them room for development. I think these are really important. As you said, the emotional intelligence does play a big part in being a leader
Yeah.
today.
Definitely. So would be the leader that you wanted to have when you were in need of one, basically.
Yes, you know that
100%.
that really it really touches on because when I want to do something and then I would think of, oh, what would so and so leader or my one of my worst managers would do, and then I would do the opposite, and that means I learn. From, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you would laugh, but it's a learning journey. Having to
Yeah.
impose a certain character is sometimes we're encouraged to do that. But then you would think, what's the added value? What do I want from
Yeah.
my team? If you just keep, as I said, if you just keep looking at the target and forgetting the people behind you, you would end up,
Uh-huh.
closer to the target, but alone. And you need them. If you might succeed in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, but you can't do all the work by yourself. You do not need the team. And as I said,
100.
if you look back at your own experiences and learn from them what to do and what not to do, I think it's a mine of knowledge and skill.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I don't think I can add anything to this topic anymore, actually. It directly relates to our another question as well. In what ways can leaders foster a culture of innovation and adaptability within their organization? And I think it all falls down to the environment you want to create to your employees, I guess.
Yes, I mean, I sort of answer that is a leader should be, as I said, having an open door and encourage the employees to speak when they do mistakes or speak if they have a suggestion, rewarding creativity, promoting a growth mindset. Um,
Yes.
Having a supportive environment where everyone feels empowered to do what they need to do, and like micromanagement, and sometimes it's difficult not to micromanage. I mean,
Yeah.
just speaking from experience, I mean, nobody's perfect. It's very difficult to say, okay, I will let you lead this important meeting and I will just be in my office today, and you worry, you want to hold all the ropes and be in control, but it's the organization will benefit more if you actually do empower people and give them a chance to grow. And as I said, maybe it's a bit similar to parenting style. You have to do it, and then and if your employees do trust you, you find them repeating even the same words that you say. And I find that in my organization, and then after a while, if I don't want a certain idea, I say, okay, this is good, but let's not talk about this. Let's talk about something else. I mean, as an example, and within 3-4 months, I find that the section heads would be using the same sentence with their employees. So I think leading by example is one of the main ideas for fostering a cultural organization that is positive and strong.
Exactly, exactly. I feel you mentioned something very critical as well here, which is trust. It's trusting your employees, trusting your team. I think once you have that element in as well, I think the growth is going to go up, creativity will go up as well, because they trust you and you trust them as well. So that shows a different level, a different playing field actually between the leadership and the employees themselves. We talk a lot about communication and effective communication. Now, how can leaders effectively communicate and reinforce core values to ensure alignment with organizational culture?
I think it's important to, as I said, to make sure that they are being heard. So when I first went to the organization, I didn't hold a big meeting. I mean, I thought it would be sort of confrontational because you're new and everybody's been there for a while. So instead, I opted for an email, greeting everyone and saying, I would like a one-page suggestion and topics for improvement of the organization from you. So instantly, from the first day, I let them know that they are being heard. And I got a lot of knowledge from it because, when you come into a new organization that you haven't been part of, and you're asked to lead, you want to know the things that are not online and the things that are not the organizational culture that comes with the employees. And I did understand a lot. And then I met with them and talked about their ideas and thought, we can do this, and maybe this is something we can do later. And these are good ideas, and I understood a lot about their roles and how they define their roles, and maybe talk about what I view their roles could be and how they can develop. So all of this at the end of the day really works for the organization. It's not work that's not part of it. It is part of it. It's part of hitting the strategic goals. It is part of doing your KPIs. It's exactly because they're the one who's supposed to be doing it. And as I said, this type of communication that deals more with development is key, not just as a cliche, communication, or they can speak to me, but being asked to speak up, and being asked. I mean, I do try to do that, and in the meetings, and to make everybody be heard.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, and I love your approach as well. Like you opted not to do like this meeting, and you mentioned confrontational, which I totally agree with you. And then you directly related to them in terms of what do you want me to change? Like, what's the issues that you can't see that come from the team as well? So through that email, I think you built that rapport from the beginning as well. So I think this is something that makes a lot of sense. Avoiding confrontation, fostering kind of a culture of speaking out, being as free as you want. In terms of design, creativity as well. Did this yield good results in the past year? I think you've had a year to fill in this role. What are the things that you started doing and rubbed on your team, and what are the results? For example, is there some initiative that you've done in terms of
Yes.
organizational culture?
Yes, we did. We did a lot this year, as we have monthly seminars that are free for the public, and they come from each capital of the Gulf states. So that really directly speaks about the values of the Arab Education Training Center of Gulf states, because at the end of the day, the ministries of education in all the Gulf states are basically capable of training their employees. The Arab Education Training Center came from a desire for collaboration and cooperation between the 6 GCC countries. So understanding that this is a main value, and I say that often, I begin with it in our meetings and I close with it. I always say to everybody we meet or everyone inside the team that I understand that GCC countries are perfectly capable of training their employees in the ministries of education. So the reason having our training center is supportive and collaborative. And we must never forget that. And sometimes it's really important for us to raise awareness about certain topics that might not be able to be raised within, the daily work of ministries. So we have these webinars. They're really successful, and I'm very happy with them. We've been online, posting on Twitter, on LinkedIn. There've never been such activity before. I was the manager or the director of the center. I think we've been able to activate our community programs. We had a few of them, at least in Qatar and in the Gulf. People are hearing more about us. Having the accreditation, we have a CPD accreditation now. So having the accreditation was one big step for us. So every time we issue a certificate, we had the accreditation. And the reason I had the accreditation as well was not for the prize itself, not just for the logo. It's to raise the quality of our training. So you have to abide by certain guidelines. And now all of our trainers and all of our speakers will have to abide by these guidelines. And it's a really nice way of saying, look, I'm not trying to be more, strict with our guidelines, but we need it for the accreditation. And then instantly people jump in and we help them. Even people who are not able to fill out all the forms, we help them, because at the end of the day, we want the work to be done rather than, test the trainers or, so yes, I think we deviated a bit from the question, but I think all of this is one of the ways of leading by example and fostering this organization. But the way I'm thinking about it, how can I teach this? I mean, I've attended personally a lot of leadership courses, and none of them, there are two things that I always often see is what you said is having social emotional intelligence. That's missing. And even if it's mentioned very briefly as a list of types. And then having the skills to work between, upper management, the strategies that come from above, and working with innovative ideas and balancing these two has been a challenge even for me personally. Balancing what I want to do as innovative and what I need to do as part of the strategy of the center. And these skills I've learned along the way, but I'm really thinking that we should have these skills as part of our leadership program, as hands-on competencies that leaders can actually learn from, rather than hear about leadership styles and theories.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that there's a lot of theory going around about how effective leadership is, whether it's in shaping organizational culture or anything about it. But it's still theory at the end of the day. There's no actionable insight. You might have some case studies around. I've taken a lot of courses as well. I've worked in training and education as well. with CPD certified courses as well. So I do understand this, and I feel like it's very minimal, especially the amount of emotional intelligence that they have there, and it's explained in ways that's really not understandable to anyone in our part of the region, or they don't relate to our culture in any way, or how our organizations work actually. Now, I feel like, yeah, I feel like you mentioned some KPIs. So, how do you measure the effectiveness of leadership and shaping organization culture, if you can? And has Great Place to Work helped identify indicators that leaders should pay attention to as well? Did going through the surveys help you in any way, and digging deeper into the results yield any information?
Yes, I mean, one of my goals when I started was to have the international accreditation for our work for the public. But then I also was concerned about having some sort of accreditation for the work done inside between the employees and working on the employees. And this is where I came by Great Place to Work. And I thought it was really important to undergo this exercise because I said it's an exercise to uplift and raise the quality of the culture of the organization from within. And going through the surveys was really an educational experience. And I was partly, I was worried, just to tell you, I was worried because we are not a big company. We have almost 15 employees. And sometimes, if a couple of them would answer badly, that would tip off the scales really, really greatly. So when the results came, and then I said, we'll just do it and see what happens. And when the results came by and they were really high, I was so happy, and I hope they were not. They didn't feel forced to answer in such ways, but they were happy with my leadership style. They were happy with what the company was going. And for me, the weaker points were also a learning starting point. I looked at the weak points and I started having some meetings and saying, let's brainstorm. How can we fix this? This is how you feel. And they were not really weak. I mean, they were like 75% on some of the aspects, but they were, areas of concern for us. So to keep, developing and having even a stronger results in the future. So I would say Great Place to Work had identified these indicators such as trust and communication. And these are important factors to consider in organizational leadership and assessing the culture and the environment of the workplace.
Definitely, definitely. We can see through all our answers, all our discussion, at the base of everything, there's trust and the element of going around with it. So that was amazing to hear. And hopefully, we're going to keep on learning together as well. I'm really excited to have you here, Dr. Fatma. Really, it was a real pleasure talking to you. Super insightful questions and answers. I couldn't ask for more of a better speaker, to be honest with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you yourself and people behind Great Place to Work to give us the opportunity to speak today and the opportunity to actually do the surveys and get the logo and celebrate. It was a great experience, and I hope we renew it every year, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And
Hopefully, and
my thanks really goes to my team. We had a Ramadan. We call it ghabga in Qatar. It's a late dinner for Ramadan, and I left, but I heard that they stayed until late at night to talk and and enjoy themselves. So it was nice to hear that we do have this culture of social interacting as well.
camaraderie between
Exactly.
the employees. One of the pillars that we do as well at Great Place to Work. Pretty sure you're familiar with it.
Exactly.
So it was a real honor having you here, and special thanks to you and to your whole team, and as well to Ninad. He's behind the scenes and he's doing well. So thank you for everything. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I would like to also thank Dr. Mohammed Mustafa, who's been the focal point for dealing with all the surveys and the hard work, filling them out and sending them to a great place to work. So thank you, Dr. Mustafa.
Please mention my hellos to him as well. It's been a while since we've talked, I know, and hopefully we'll catch up soon with him.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Inshallah.